What's going on, everybody? My name is Pastor B. Wallace.
And I'm Keontae McDonald, and you're tuned in to Simplify Complexity, a relationship podcast.
All right, all right. That's right. We want to welcome you to another day, another podcast, no matter where you're at, no matter what you're doing. We are so honored and blessed that you would join us and that you would be here with us today as we are going to talk about those friendships, those besties. And so one of the things I'm always excited is our actual topic comes from a listener who wrote in, and this is what the listener had to say. So if you haven't had a chance to leave a review, make sure you go leave a review right now. Make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. It means so much when we get to read your reviews, when we get to see it and hear from you guys, because we want to meet you where you are. And so the only way we can do that is you begin to reach out to us. And so this particular person wrote in for a review. They said, I've listened to a few of your episodes so far, and they are very insightful and refreshing. Keontae, man, right? That's our goal,
That's
man.
good.
We want to be insightful. We want to be refreshing. And then she says, I'll definitely be listening to this podcast more. I would like to hear your insight on how to deal with best friends who've gotten into a serious relationship and left you behind or abandoned, changed in an unhealthy way. And so that's going to be our topic today. So Keontae, man, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, man. It's raining in Southern California, a rarity, but it's still a good day.
It's still a good day. So, we have this person who wrote in, and I think we've all kind of experienced this, whether or not if you're the person who steps into a relationship and then all of a sudden your connection with that best friend begins to wane, or you're the person that kind of feels abandoned, where you have this close relationship with somebody and then they step into a relationship and then you kind of feel abandoned. And so we want to talk about, how do you navigate that? How do you deal with that? And as we talk about this, one of the first things I want to do is I want to talk from a point of view from someone who is the first. I first want to talk about it from the point of view of the person who felt left behind, that felt abandoned. And,
The friend,
and what
right?
comes to
The
my
abandoned
mind
friend.
and my encouragement is sometimes we miss the fact that friendships go through seasons. We miss the fact that sometimes friendships go through transitions. And the way things were at one season or one time period of a person's life, it changes when it's 5 years later. So when people get into a relationship, when people go off to college, when people get married, or when you have kids, or when you get a different job or you move to a different state, in life we go through many different phases and challenges. But really, what makes a friendship, what really makes that bond, is in each of those seasons and in each of those challenges that friendship remains. You want to jump on that at all?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and I'll just piggyback on you, everything that you said, because in a sense, maintaining a friendship is just like maintaining a relationship. It's work. And just like relationships, they go through the puppy love phase, or the honeymoon stage. You know what I mean? Then you go through those kind of like dry patches. And then especially when life starts to happen, because that's what happens. Life starts to happen.
Yep.
You might get a job promotion. You might have to move somewhere. You know what I mean? I have plenty of friends who, I went to high school with, and we were close friends. And, 10 years down the line, we're married, got kids, a couple of them moved to different states. But it's just like what you said. You have to maintain that relationship, that friendship should stay intact. And that's the true meaning of a friendship.
So now, building on that, right? So the first thing is understand that friendships go through different seasons. They go through different phases. But we can be immature sometimes, or we can have an immature view as friends when we want things to always stay the same as they were. And I want to get some hearts right there. I want to get some thumbs up. And for those that are just coming on, we're doing our live edition of our podcast. Share this with somebody. Somebody needs to be encouraged about this. How do you maintain and navigate these friendships as we step into relationships? And one of those things is we're not fully aware that relationships go through changes. And so what's happening is that person, they step into a relationship, they step into a marriage, specifically a marriage, and all of a sudden you're still wanting things to be exactly how they were. But here's the thing. You might be single still, but they're not. And so,
Yeah.
come on, Keontae. So where you guys used to go and how you guys used to hang out all night, and it
It ain't the same.
changes. Go ahead, man. I see you smiling. Jump on that.
Yeah, yeah. I was about to say it ain't the same, and you just have to be realistic in the fact that Their life is evolving. Not to say that, oh, because they're getting married, I'm just stuck in a rut, but they're making significant life changes. Like if especially when it comes to marriage. If your friend is getting married, that's a whole nother life change, with a person. You know what I mean? Even if a person is getting into a newly relationship, you have to understand that now not necessarily you're on the back burner, but they're investing time in trying to build a future with someone else. You, as a friend, let's say you guys have been friends in high school. You guys have already had that stage, that data collecting stage, that you know who your friend is. You know what I mean? You guys have already built that. Now they're moving into a phase where they're trying to build that exact same thing, but in a more romantic manner with a new person. So you got to kind of be, like I said, you got to be realistic, and you have to be understanding that okay, they're taking time to try to further their lives or evolve their lives. It's
Well,
not
let me
necessarily.
add to that
Oh, go
though.
ahead.
Not only do you want to be realistic, but you also want to be loving. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
here it
yeah,
is. You
yeah.
have somebody who you love and who you care about, and they're stepping into a relationship with somebody that they're building to have this love and this friendship with. And so you got to be that person that says, I want you to be happy with somebody. I want now. It's
Hmm.
different if you have concerns because the person they're with
Oh, yeah.
is a bad person, or you're concerned about that particular relationship, but in the end you want the best for your friend. You know what this reminds me of is all of a sudden you have a friend, they get a new car and you're hating because they got the new car and you still have the old car, or you're
Are you
upset
catching a
because you're,
bus?
yeah, you know what I mean? You're still riding the bus. And so the thing is that as friends, when we see another friend in a relationship, we should be supportive. We should be
Hmm.
excited. We should be encouraging. And we understand, and this is part of that encouragement and understanding, is that as a friend, when my friend gets into a relationship, I understand that our relationship is now going to have a shift in it. And what
Mm,
makes our
that's
relationship
good.
solid is in the shifts, in the challenges, in those seasons, we're still friends. And so, in
Exactly.
instance, if maybe we were together and we were spending time together where we talked every single night and we went out every single weekend, well, if that person gets into a relationship, that's going to change, but we're still friends. And so even though we don't talk every night, we're still talking at least a couple times a week. And what makes that a solid friendship is you're still there. So you have any last thoughts from the perspective of the friend who feels abandoned?
Yeah, I was just gonna say you just really have to focus on the fact that this is a friendship. You know what I mean? And your friendship really holds weight. If a person is like dating and trying to meet somebody else, you should rest in the fact that your friendship holds a little bit more weight than them just trying to find another person. Because your friendship should be something that's gonna last. And I use myself as an example. I have a best friend. He ended up moving to Houston. He got married. He has two kids now. Now I have three kids of my own now, and I'm married as well. We both have jobs. You know what I mean? So life happens. Like I said earlier, life just happens. But where we used to talk almost every week or every day, now the talks come like maybe every 2 weeks, maybe every 3 weeks, sometimes maybe a month. But what still remains is that we built that friendship way back 13 years ago. That even if we speak month on end, it's like we're picking up where we just left off. And that's what really makes us friendship, and that's what you got to hold on to.
Right, right. All right. Well, I want to shift now, and we want to go from the point of view of the person who has these friendships, but then they begin to abandon those friendships as they
Mm.
step into a relationship. Because there's also a warning there. Yes, in relationships, in a romantic relationship you're building, you're going to draw closer to that person, and there's only so much time you have with your friends and with your community. So that time is going to get smaller, but it shouldn't end completely. It shouldn't
Yeah,
completely
definitely.
just disappear. And that's one of the things that jumped out to me when the listener kind of expressed their concern, is that the relationship that she had with her best friend was changing in unhealthy ways. And it could be that this person now is abandoning completely their community. And our
Hmm.
community within a relationship is so critical to the health and growth of your relationship.
Community
I
is
want to say that one more
important.
time.
Community is important.
Your community specifically is so important to the health and growth of your relationship. And so the worst thing that we can do is to begin to abandon that relationship rather than making sure we're diligent to keep that community involved. What you got, Keontae?
Right. Yeah, man. I was just gonna go on a Bible verse because when you speak about community, Proverbs 11:14 says, "Where there is no guidance, a people fails, but in abundance of counselors there is safety." So that's why it's important to really keep your community intact. And also, while you're going, like I said, while your life is changing and you're moving into a space where you're trying to build something with someone else, you got to be mindful as well as keeping your community intact or keeping your friends intact.
Exactly.
Not
Yep.
necessarily, yeah, not necessarily saying that, oh, I have to devote all my time to maintain this friendship, because just like we spoke on in the last perspective, is your friendship is your friendship. That should already be something that's maintained. But just like a relationship, friendships are work also, and they're two-way streets. So you got to kind of, what I mean, you can't just get into a relationship and start dating somebody and just say, you know what, I'll get back to them like 6 months from now. No, you got to continue to keep up with your own identity. And that's why the community is so important, because even outside of you data collecting and meeting somebody new, you got to really set up time to, okay, let me go kick it with my friends or my best friend. Let me set up some alone time with them so we can catch up. I can give her the details on, everything I'm going through in this relationship, this guy I'm meeting, or, this girl I'm meeting, because you want that wise counsel. That's why you want to keep that community intact, and that's why it's so important.
But I want to build on a point that you just mentioned, because that's how we get into situations. You know what I mean? We get into
Mm-hmm.
situations because we involve ourselves, we engulf ourselves into a romantic relationship so heavy, and at the same time, we begin to alienate our community to where we lose perspective. And I think we've all been there, or
Yeah.
I think we've all known friends that have been there, where we lose perspective because you're so infatuated. You're so, the word, in love, to where you don't see things clearly. And so your community helps you to see what you don't see. Your community helps you to keep boundaries. And so what ends up happening, I mean, I've seen it so often where people will all of a sudden be connected into the church. They'll be connected in this community. They'll be coming to Bible study. They'll be going, doing all these things. All of a sudden they get in a relationship, and it's like, man, where's John, man? Where's Jane? And you're like, yeah, you ain't seen
Right,
them.
right.
And all of a sudden they come back pregnant. I'm just trying to be honest, man. People come back
No,
pregnant.
hey,
People
you
come
being
back,
real.
just trying to be real. People come back married. That's the craziest thing to me, where it's like all of a sudden you went from a place where, you were not in a relationship, and all of a sudden you were MIA for like 6 months to a year, and all of a sudden you're married. And it's like, who poured into your relationship? Who was there to
Right.
encourage you? Who was there to walk with you? I just want to emphasize your community is so important. Don't leave them behind. Do you have any last thoughts on that one before we go to the
Yeah.
final point?
Yeah, man, that's good because, oftentimes, just like you said, we can kind of go head over heels and we have like these blinders over us, and things that can be red flags just turn into like, oh, that's just a little flickering of a light. But you know what I mean? When you're around your community, they can
Not a
see
big
those red
deal.
flags. Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, they can see those red flags and they might be able to point those things out to you that you're just really blind to. You know what I mean? That you're subconsciously blind to because you're just like, oh, I'm just so infatuated, and you know what I mean? I'm just head over heels. You know what I mean? It's a good emotion to have, but it's a greater thing to have a community intact to be able to help walk you through that, to be able to help you see, what I mean, blind spots that you may not be aware to.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the foundation of keeping your relationship intact when you're the one that's, heading into a relationship.
Good, good. All right, so we want to end now with how do we bring it together? So we have both of these point of views, both of these perspectives, and both of them, whether or not if you're the friend who feels abandoned or if you're the friend who's now stepping into this romantic relationship, possibly doing the abandoning, is we have this perspective of what is that balance? Now, as we
Mm-hmm.
go through these two perspectives, we want to finish with the key thing of how do you maintain it? How do you navigate it? Is you need to communicate. You need to
Communication is
communicate.
key.
Just like you need to communicate with inside a romantic relationship, you got to be able to communicate with inside those platonic relationships. And just because y'all been best friends for 10 years, for 15 years, 20 years, it doesn't mean all of a sudden you get to stop doing key principles, and that key principle is communicating. And so if you feel
Right.
like you're the person that's being abandoned, then you need to begin to communicate and say, hey, I'm concerned that I don't want to lose our friendship. But you need to do that with the maturity of understanding that the relationship is changing. So if you go into that
Hmm.
thing saying, "Well, I want things to be exactly how they were," well, then that's an immature view because you're not being realistic, as you mentioned earlier, Keontae, that things are changing. So you want to communicate with the understanding, okay, how can I be supportive, but I'm concerned because I feel like you're completely detaching from your community. And
Right,
you
right,
want to
right.
jump on that as far as communication?
Yeah, yeah. Like communication is key in everything, especially, like just like you said, in relationships is communication. Communication is key, as well as friendships. Just like I was saying earlier, like you with your friendships and just with your like relationships, whether you're married or dating, it's all work. So you have to kind of put the work in. Even, you go down to the simplest thing of being a parent. Like you can't just have a child and just not talk to them or not communicate with them and just be like, they know I love them. Like, do that? It takes work. You got to continue to show that. You got to continue to, to express that and to just go about navigating around their lives because your children are growing up too. So you have to adapt and like, okay, you're not, I can't hold you anymore, but I mean, let's go out and get some ice cream or something like that. So you got to kind of be adaptive, but also communicate that you're still there, that you still care, that you still want to build this relationship. And I think oftentimes, when this happens, when people get into relationships and they have this friend, they feel abandoned. There's just a dire lack of communication. One friend feels a certain way, and the other friend is just totally oblivious because there has been no communication on that part.
Yeah. And as you said it, that's where we just have to communicate. We have to work. And here's where we want to go to is as you begin to communicate, begin to consider, okay, what you need to do to maintain that relationship. So let's
Yep.
say from the perspective of the person who's now in this romantic relationship is you have to be intentional. And
Hmm.
so I know that the person you're with, you're excited, you love this person, but you don't want to detach from your community from the previous points that we just mentioned. And so you have to be intentional. So when somebody does talk to you and there is a concern, when you become aware that, wow, okay, I might be doing this, you want to be intentional so you don't do it. You want to really look and say, okay, well, how much are we connecting with my friends? Have my friends even met the person I'm with? How much are my friends
Mm.
around this person? Do some double dates, do some group fellowships.
Yep.
I know we're in a pandemic, so it makes it a little bit hard, but it's so important that your community is involved in the process. Your
Hmm.
community is involved in not the end, not when not at the very end y'all engaged. You know what I'm saying? This is my boo, but in the process
They're
of when
involved in
y'all
the
first
journey,
in the
right?
journey when you first connecting, every step, and you're able to talk with them and encourage them and do that in that balanced way. So you have to be intentional. And you have any thoughts as far
Right.
as what people can do to help out with that?
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna piggyback off what you said because it's interesting where you're saying like, we're in a pandemic. It's at this point the way technology is, it's even no excuse for that because you got Zoom. You know what I mean? You got Clubhouse now. People are on Clubhouse. You got even group FaceTime. Like there's ways to connect and ways to, like go on double dates and stuff without even being physically present. But just like I said earlier too, the friendship is it's a two-way street. So once you get past that communication phase, of just letting your friend know how you feel and what's going on, you got to start putting hand to plow and you got to be creative. You know what I mean? Like you said, create some double dates or some group dates. You know what I mean? Why don't you get with your friends to schedule like, hey, I know you're busy. You with your new
Yep.
person and trying to learn them. Let's go ahead and schedule. Is Thursday night good for you? Maybe every Thursday we could just do like a 30-minute phone call or something like that. You got to be intentional and creative on continuing to create that space for you to maintain that friendship, for you to stay in the loop of things going on in your friend's life. And also, you have to just be mindful that, like I said, life happens. So even though that you're creating these things, just be mindful that your friend might be a little bit busier than normal, or things might come up here and there. But don't feel slighted, or don't just feel like, oh, they just want to detach from me. They don't want to be my friend anymore.
Right.
Be mindful, give some grace, give some mercy, but also put hand to plow and try to create those things and schedule things. Like I said, those talks and those double dates and those fellowships. So
And I like what you said
that's my
because
advice.
it's true because that's a change. And sometimes we struggle with change. So let's say that best friend, you've never had to schedule to hang out with your best friend before.
Right. They're
But
just
now that
always
they're in a
available.
relationship, what you have to do to be intentional is now you guys are scheduling. And don't feel you're slighted all of a sudden because you have to put it in your schedule, but that's what you're doing to be intentional. And here's what I want to finish with for me is that what makes best friends is that they last. They withstand life's changes. They
Yep.
evolve. And here's the example I want to go through. Is it's interesting when you're in high school, right? And as you're in high school, you have all types of friends, right? Yeah, I mean, you talk to some people, man, I got like 80 friends. I'm friends with half the school. And that sounds really
Yeah.
good. That's because you see them and it's convenient. Come on, Keontae. That relationship is
Yeah.
convenient because you guys are seeing each other every single day at school. You're in
On
the
the
same
daily,
classes,
right?
but that then you go through a different season. You graduate, and all of a sudden you find out that the people that you used to be really close friends with, you're not really close friends with anymore because you don't see them
This
every
is
day.
facts.
Then all of a sudden you go to college and then that group gets a little bit smaller. Then all of a sudden you
Smaller.
graduate college and
Yeah.
that group gets a little bit smaller. Then all of a sudden you get into a relationship and that group gets a little bit smaller. It's the friends that are with you, those best friends, they are with you through each of those phases of your life because that's what best friends do. They're with each other. They're not there just because it's convenient, but they make sure they maintain those relationships even when life changes. That's all I got,
That's
man.
good.
That's all I got.
That's good. That's good. Man, the last thing for me is I would just say that just like in the last part where we said the things that you can do to better your relationship, when you do get those times to either double date or especially when you're alone with your friend, when you're scheduling that time, the biggest thing I would say is be present. Oftentimes, even when we're with somebody and we're scheduling something like, okay, I'm gonna give you 30 minutes on Thursday nights, what I mean, that's our time. But we
Yeah.
can be in that 30 minutes, and we can have our phone checking Instagram or waiting for him to text us back. Be present. You know what I mean? Be mindful of that time that you're getting with that friend and actually just be there. Have a listening ear. You know what I mean? Start a really good dialogue where you're really going back and forth and you're listening and responding and listening and responding. Because I can tell you one thing, if somebody's not present, you can tell that they're not present. You can tell their mind's just off somewhere. And then you feel even more slighted in that sense. So just be present. Whether you're the friend that's on the opposite where you feel abandoned, but you get in that time, be present with the friend that's in a relationship. And especially the friend that's in a relationship because now you have a new distraction.
Yeah.
Please be present when you're scheduling that time with your friend that's feeling abandoned. So
That's good.
That's
good.
it for me.
All right, everybody. I'm so glad you guys were able to join us. Make sure if you have not had a chance to subscribe, hit that subscribe button. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Instagram. And actually, you can follow me at Brian E. Wallace and Keontae.
And then, you can follow me at KEONTE McDonald, like the restaurant.
There we go. So Keontae McDonald. So again, we want to thank you for joining us and maintain those relationships. Share this with somebody, encourage somebody. As you know, we don't want to allow the enemy to come in and break up those best friends, break up those communities, because that's when we're weakest. We're stronger together. And so we want to make sure that we're maintaining those friendships and that community so that way we're one and we're together. So God bless you. God keep you. Let's go ahead and finish actually with a prayer. Father, thank you for our time together. Father, thank you for our listeners, but thank you for them, the time that they take to write in. And we just pray that this was encouraging, that this would help them through that process of navigating that friendship as one of them steps into a romantic relationship. And Father, may they seek to you and seek your guidance and how they can maintain that community. Father, we love you and we thank you. We ask all these things in your son, Jesus' name. Amen. All right, everybody.
Amen.
God bless you. God keep you. Till next time.